The courthouse smelled like floor polish and cold coffee, the kind that bites the air before a storm. Evelyn stood alone by the metal detector with her coat folded over her arms. Thin as paper, she watched the double doors breathe open. Reporters. Flashes. A wall of sound. Robert Hale stepped through first. Black suit, cold jaw, eyes like winter glass, billionaire. Philanthropist. The man whose name made buildings stand straighter. He didn't look at her. Not once. "Ma'am, are you representing yourself?" the clerk asked softly. Evelyn nodded. Yes. Her throat felt like it held a stone. A pause hung there, heavy. Silence. She remembered lemon-scented halls, the polished staircase in the Hale mansion, the chandelier that trembled when the twins laughed, Michael and John. 12. Mirror images with different souls. The night before the accusation, they had left paper cranes on her bedside table. "For luck," they'd said. "Defendant," a bailiff called. Inside. The door's side shut behind her, sealing in the eyes, the whispers, the judgment. Evelyn's steps were small, careful. She could hear the judge's pen tapping. She could hear her own heartbeat. A cufflink glinted on Robert's wrist. The same sapphire blue as the locket she was accused of stealing. His late wife's locket. In the second row, Sophia, the housekeeper, clutched a rosary, lips moving with prayers that barely breathed. Emma, the twins' tutor, sat straight-backed, gaze steady, quietly fierce. State versus Evelyn Reyes, the clerk read. Evelyn swallowed. Present. The prosecutor's file snapped open like a trap. "Where is your counsel?" the judge asked. I couldn't afford one," Evelyn whispered. "I asked for time." Another pause. Another echo. Robert's jaw worked once. Only once. Then, a new sound. Sneakers squeaking against waxed floors, breathless and bright and out of place. Two boys slipped through the side door, cheeks pink from running, hair wind-tossed. Michael. John. The twins looked at Evelyn, then at their father. Michael lifted a scuffed tablet to his chest, knuckles white. John's voice was quiet but steady. "Your Honor, we need to be heard." Every camera turned, every whisper stopped. What they were about to do would crack the room in half. The mansion woke at 5 each morning. Evelyn woke sooner. She loved the sound of the kettle before dawn, the thin whistle, the hush of steam that fogged the window. Outside, the fountain sang to no one. "Bread's done," Sophia said, slipping a pan from the oven. "Eat while it's warm," Evelyn smiled. "You'll spoil me." Sophia's hands were flour-dusted, her kindness thicker than butter on toast. The rich like to call their houses homes, but this one felt like a museum. Portraits watched from gilded frames, eyes too perfect to be real. Robert Hale's late wife smiled down in oil and light, sapphire locket at her throat, a secret pressed against painted skin. "Miss Reyes." The head of security, Mr. Hale, not related, leaned in the door, voice too sharp. "Don't linger." "Yes, sir," Evelyn said, keeping her eyes low. He liked praise loud and corrections louder. He liked reminding staff who owned the silence. Emma arrived at 8 with schoolbooks, cards, a grin that softened the room. "Gentlemen," she told the twins, "we'll conquer fractions today." Michael rolled his eyes, John laughed, and suddenly the walls breathed. "Want a crane?" Michael asked Evelyn later. "Lucky cranes multiply." "I need all the luck," she said, and tucked it in her pocket. Bullying in mansions wears gloves, it smiles for cameras, then squeezes in hallways. A scarf went missing? Glance at the maid. A rumor needed a spine? Whisper her name. The locket lived in a glass case in Robert's study. Sometimes he'd stand there at night, one hand on the glass, breathing slow. "Dad?" John would ask from the doorway. "Back to bed," Robert would answer without turning, his voice skimming the surface of grief. The night before the storm, Evelyn brought tea to the study. The case was ajar. The velvet lay bare. She froze, breath snagging. "Sir," she said, knocking gently. "Sir, the locket." Footsteps. Mr. Hale appeared first, eyes like screws. Behind him, the CFO, Mr. Crane, smooth as a new coin. "What have you done?" Crane said, softly, like pity. Evelyn stepped back. "I didn't touch it." Robert entered last, shadow long, silence longer. Her heart sank at the distance in his stare. "Check her room," Mr. Hale barked, already dialing. Evelyn's mouth dried. "You can, please." They didn't hear. Or they chose not to. The twins stood at the top of the stairs, faces pale, hands touching like mirrors. Sophia whispered, "Dios mío," crossing herself. Evelyn heard drawers opening somewhere far away, wood against wood, a finality. Minutes later, a blue velvet box appeared in a gloved hand. Found in her dresser, Mr. Hale said. Robert's gaze didn't flinch. Call the police. Evelyn's knees trembled, paper crane digging into her palm. Sir, she tried again, voice breaking. Please look at me. He did. For 2 long beats, he did, and the look said everything she feared. The siren outside began to wail, and the portrait's painted smile didn't move at all. As the cuffs clicked shut, Michael and John looked at each other, then at Evelyn, like they had just made a promise no one else could hear. 3 days later, the sun rose late and tired. The city felt colder than it should. Evelyn buttoned the same coat twice, the seam at her wrist unraveling like a quiet confession. Her bus exhaled her out by the courthouse. She had counted every bill, every coin, every favor. Lawyers didn't work on prayers. The public defender's office was drowning. We can't take your case for the first hearing, the clerk said, voice apologetic. We're sorry. Of course, Evelyn replied, because what else do you say when you are small? Emma met her on the steps, breath fogging, eyes steady. I can't represent you, she said, but I can sit near you. Why are you here? Evelyn asked, heat in her cheeks. Because Michael and John asked me to, Emma said simply. And because I believe you. Sophia arrived with a thermos, the lid chipped, the coffee strong enough to stand a spoon. Drink, she insisted. You'll shake less. Evelyn wrapped her hands around the heat, breathed in courage. Where are the boys? She whispered. With their father, Emma said, eyes flicking to the curb where black cars glittered like beetles. They're trying. Trying how? The question stuck in Evelyn's ribs. She had seen the twins fear the night of the arrest, the way their shoulders turned inward. Children learned the shape of power fast. Inside, the prosecutor stacked exhibits as if building a staircase to a verdict, photographs, inventory logs. A neat, pretty narrative that fit like a glove. The maid, he said in rehearsal to the assistant at his elbow. Opportunity and motive, he never said her name. Robert signed something with a gold pen and did not glance at the benches. Mr. Crane murmured in his ear. This will move quickly. Mr. Hale stood near the aisle, arms crossed over a chest that held a radio instead of a heart. Ms. Reyes, the judge said when the case was called. Are you proceeding without counsel? Yes, Your Honor, Evelyn answered, voice steady because she forced it to be. Do you understand the risks? I do, she lied, because what do risks look like when your life is already on fire? She watched the prosecutor rise, watched his mouth form words. Theft, breach of trust, significant value. As if language were a hammer, she wanted to stand and say, I make beds like they hold secrets. I iron shirts until the day's anger softens. I have never taken what isn't mine. But the rules were not made for her kind of truth. A rustle moved through the gallery, not wind, not breath, expectation. Emma's fingers found hers. Squeezed once. Whatever happens, Emma whispered. Look at me when it gets loud. It was about to get loud. Out in the corridor, a child laughed, then hushed. Shoes squeaked across waxed floors. The bailiff reached for the handle, and something like hope, wild, reckless hope, banged at the doors from the other side. They were late. They were breathless. And they were carrying proof no one expected to see. Michael and John stood just inside the doorway. The courtroom leaned toward them as if dragged by gravity. Robert half rose. Boys! His voice a warning, a plea, a father's fear of loss and losing face. Your Honor, Michael said, clutching the tablet. We need to testify. The judge frowned, softened, then frowned again. Are you represented? Emma stood. I'm their tutor, Your Honor. Their father is here. All eyes slid back to Robert. Sit down, Robert told the twins, calm as glass, sharp as glass. John swallowed. Dad, please. Michael's knuckles went whiter around the tablet. Emma stepped forward, chin level. With the court's permission, I can explain the relevance. Make it quick, the judge said, pen stilled. Emma nodded. 2 weeks before the locket went missing, there were small intrusions in the boys' rooms. Books moved. Drawers open. We set a motion-triggered camera on their tablet for safety. Gasps laced the benches. Reporters leaned in. Mr. Crane's smile thinned. Michael unlocked the screen with a trembling finger. On it, a grainy nighttime image flickered to life. A hallway. The guest wing. A shadow at the end. Footsteps approached the maid's room, slow and careful. Evelyn tasted metal in her mouth. In the frame, The door to her room opened, a man entered. Broad shoulders. Security jacket. Mr. Hale, he carried velvet. He did not turn on the light. Objection, chain of custody, the prosecutor snapped, recovering first. This is inadmissible without. Save it, the judge said, eyes on the screen. We all see what we see. The video showed hands pulling out a drawer, placing the box, easing the lid to leave it slightly askew, then a pause. The man glanced toward the hall, as if listening to a voice we could not hear. Your Honor, John said, voice small but clear. There's more. He tapped to the next clip. Mr. Crane's reflection flickered in the frame. Not in Evelyn's room, no. In the study earlier that night, he pressed a cloth to the display case latch. He smiled to himself in the glass, a ghost of greed. Now the room did make noise. Not whispers. Not gasps. A low, stunned hum. Robert's hand closed slowly over the back of the chair, tendons standing out like ropes. Boys, he said again, but it was different now, softer, the old hurt of a man who had lost too much. Michael looked at Evelyn. We're sorry, he mouthed. Mr. Hale reached for the twins. That device needs to be secured. Touch them and you're out, the judge said, mild as rain, iron as rails. The prosecutor, scrambling. We request a recess to. No, the judge said, but we will do this correctly. He looked at Robert. Sir, do you consent to the court subpoenaing your household security logs and devices for verification? Silence filled the room like smoke. Emma's hand found Evelyn's again. Sophia's rosary clicked, a tiny heartbeat. Robert stared at the tablet. At his sons. At the portrait in his head, the one with the sapphire smile. He could protect his pride. Or he could protect the truth. His jaw worked once. Only once. Then he lifted his eyes to the judge. Subpoena them, Robert said at last, and every camera flash felt like thunder rolling in. The storm broke slow. Subpoenas flew like winter birds, black wings against a white sky. Security logs were pulled. Radios seized. Phones bagged. Mr. Hale's voice filled the speakers in fragments, recorded and time-stamped. Plant it. Yes. Crane wants this clean. She's quiet. No one will fight for her. Words like stones. Words that bruise. Evelyn held herself still, like a cup brimming, because if she moved she would spill. Mr. Crane kept his smile like a weapon. Our firm managed the museum gala, he told reporters in the hall, voice silky. We take theft seriously. Inside, his email said other things, insurance policies. Valuations. A locket worth more than memory. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, voice thinner now. Given the new materials, the state requests time. The state was very ready 20 minutes ago, the judge replied. We will continue, he turned to Evelyn. Do you wish to make a statement? Her breath lodged in her chest. Yes, she said. I clean things for a living. Her words were small, but they were sharp. I clean prints from glass. I clean crumbs from plates. I clean the smudges anger leaves on mirrors. She looked at Robert. I never tried to clean your grief. I just tried to leave it undisturbed. Silence. Not empty. Full. She told them about lemon oil on the banister, about the twins' paper cranes, about the portrait that held a house together. She told them how poor people learn to make room for the heavy things rich houses can't carry out to the trash. She ended with, I did not take that locket. Sophia cried quietly, shoulders shaking. Emma blinked fast and sat straighter, an anchor in a human shape. The twins didn't blink at all, holding the moment as if it might bolt. Robert's eyes dropped to the table, and for the first time he looked tired. Call Mr. Hale, the judge ordered. Security stepped onto the stand with a jaw set for war. His answers were clipped, then slower, then stumbling when the timestamps trapped him. Who ordered it? The judge asked. Objection. Crane's attorney barked from the back row he had taken in a hurry. Overruled, the judge said without looking at him. Mr. Hale's throat bobbed. Mr. Crane. You could feel the air change, a summer field when a snake moves through the grass. The prosecutor cleared his throat, now sweating. The state, moves to dismiss charges, pending further. No, Evelyn said, surprising even herself. Not yet. Heads pivoted. Speak carefully, the judge warned, but there was respect in it now. I want the record to show who did this, Evelyn said, and why. She looked at the twins. For them. Crane rose at last, polish cracking, voice brittle. This is outrageous. Robert stood too turning to face the man who had counseled him through every mercy he'd avoided. "Sit down," Robert said, quiet as snow. "For the first time, Mr. Crane did." The bailiff moved toward the back exit. Crane had disappeared, and somewhere a side door banged, hard enough to make the lights shiver. They found Crane 2 floors down, near a stairwell that smelled of dust and old paint. He didn't run. He just looked small, as if the suit had finally admitted it didn't belong to him. A detective read him his rights, voice echoing off cinderblock walls. Back upstairs, the judge returned with a stack of orders and a patience that had teeth. "The charges against Ms. Reyes are dismissed with prejudice," he said, each word a beam of light. "Her record will reflect the truth." Sophia made a sound like someone coming up for air. Emma exhaled, smiling with her eyes first. The twins hugged each other, then Evelyn, a quick, fierce brace. Robert approached last, the crowd parting like tall grass. He stood in front of Evelyn and forgot how to be a publicly traded human. "I was cruel," he said. "That is not the same thing as being right." His fingers trembled, and his voice did too. "I cannot give you back these days," he added, barely audible. "I can give you a job. A raise. Tuition. Whatever you—" Evelyn shook her head, gentle. "Jobs can be taken. Kindness shouldn't be purchased." He nodded, once, as if she had said a thing he'd needed to hear since the portrait stopped speaking. Reporters shouted questions, the air tasting like metal and ink. Emma placed a hand on Michael's shoulder, on John's. "You were brave," she told them, "and you were kind. That's what Mom wanted," John whispered, eyes shining. Robert stiffened, then broke just a little. "Tell me what she wanted," he asked, and the boys did, quietly. Later outside, the sky had shrugged off the storm. Pigeons argued on the courthouse steps, a ridiculous kind of normal. Sophia pressed a foil-wrapped sandwich into Evelyn's hands. "Eat." Evelyn laughed, a real laugh that startled even her. She looked at the camera lenses, at the people who had glared at her, stepped around her, named her wrong. "Do you see me now?" She wanted to ask, but she didn't. She looked instead at the twins. "Thank you," she said, "for choosing truth over comfort." Robert reached for his sons, and this time they let him. He held them not like trophies, not like proof, but like answers he'd nearly lost. In the noise and the lights and the late afternoon wind, he turned back to Evelyn. "Come home," he said. "Not as staff. As family." Evelyn's eyes stung. She thought of lemon oil and paper cranes, of portraits in glass cases and the way houses hold their breath. "Family is earned," she said softly. "Let's try," he nodded, and the twins grinned at the word try, because trying is what saved them. As they walked down the steps together, the city exhaled. Somewhere, a church bell rang. Somewhere, a bus sighed. Somewhere, a life tilted back toward true. Evelyn tucked the paper crane deeper into her pocket and felt it steady her palm. For the first time in days, the air tasted like rain before it falls, like something clean. Final hook. And if truth could be this loud today, what would it sound like tomorrow, when everyone who watched decided who they wanted to be? If you were the twins, would you have stood up against your own father in public, or waited, quietly, at home? Have you ever had to choose truth over comfort when power was watching? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might be the spark someone else needs.